Amazing moment, poor mother unexpectedly gives last sandwich to child revealed as CEO's son. Clara stood in her cramped kitchen, the faint buzz of the fridge filling the stillness. She stared into the nearly empty space where the food should have been, her heart sunken. The last sandwich lay on the countertop, its crusty edges just begging to be devoured. She glanced back toward the living room, where Danny was finishing his homework, blissfully unaware of their dwindling supplies. With only pennies left in their bank account, she hesitated. The thought of letting him take that sandwich for lunch twisted her stomach into knots. "Mom? Is my lunch ready?" Danny's innocent voice cut through her confusion. Clara forced a smile, but the weight of it felt like a brick on her chest. "Just a second, sweetheart." Her hands trembled as she wiped the counters, her mind racing. How could she nourish her son while the hunger gnawed at her? She felt cornered, stuck in a reality where the options narrowed down to choices that bruised her heart. But the truth gripped her fiercely: Danny needed that sandwich more than she did. She bit her lip hard enough to taste blood as she wrapped it in waxed paper, her resolve hardening with each fold. The sting of sacrifice surfaced, rising in her throat like bile. "You're going to be great today, you know that?" she whispered, her heart breaking a little more. As she handed over the lunch, she pushed down the gnawing sensation in her own stomach, redirecting her attention to the comfort of Danny's smile. Yet beneath that fleeting moment of joy laid a deepening chasm of fear and confusion regarding their future. The unpaid bills hovered like dark shadows, and she felt suffocated by the pressure to secure a better life for her son while barely keeping her head above water. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing day, Clara found herself stretched thinner than the last. The local diner work babbled away, ambience masking the tide of exhaustion flooding her body. It numbed the ache in her chest but frayed the edges of her sanity. Was it enough? Her wages barely scraped the surface of their needs, yet she hoped against hope that each hour spent there would inch them closer to stability. Meanwhile, Danny was adjusting to the social minefield of his new school. The whispers about his background mixed with his excitement over the scholarship opportunity like a toxic brew, a looming darkness Stuart felt creeping into his bright dreams. He tried to ignore the stares, but the doubts crept into his mind, his mother working late, skimping on meals, swirling around in conversations about privilege and expectation. One frigid evening after another grueling shift, Clara stood at her dimly lit window, staring at the frost creeping across the glass. It reminded her of her own fears, that cold isolation felt with every alarming bill that awaited her. She thought of the sandwich, the sacrifice, and how each day dragged her deeper into an unknown abyss. But maybe, just maybe, the chance for something greater was right around the corner. All she had to do was navigate the unknown, making sure the gaping void didn't swallow them whole. What would it mean for Danny if they reached for that possibility together? The questions loomed, thick and suffocating, leaving Clara teetering on a precipice of decisions she never imagined she'd face. As she turned away from the window and towards the flickering shadows of the living room, Clara's heart raced, and the tension soared. Could she rise from this darkness, or was it too late? The urge to collapse crashed against the dutiful determination to fight for her son, brewing a storm from within as the future loomed dark, heavy, and uncertain. Clara woke to the monotonous beeping of her alarm, each sound jarring her from a restless sleep. The kitchen felt colder than the night before, the chill reflecting the growing uncertainty gnawing at her mind. As the light filtered in, illuminating the fading paint and cracked tiles, she tried to summon the energy for the day ahead. What awaited her was a repetitive cycle: work, home, worry. Yet today, she felt something different beneath the haze, a flicker of resolve. At the diner, the morning rush was a blur. Clara moved like a well-oiled machine, serving coffee and flipping pancakes with practiced ease. But her thoughts drifted to Danny's scholarship application, the weight of his future pressing hard. Could she support him while grappling with their precarious existence? As she poured coffee for a regular, a heavy-set man with a thick beard leaned over the counter, his face clouded with concern. "Clara, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." The words stung. She smiled weakly, but within her, the reality struck. She could no longer hide her struggles behind polite grins. She needed more than fleeting reassurances. She needed a plan. After her shift, Clara found herself wandering through the small community center on her way home. It was a modest space, filled with posters promising a variety of classes, everything from painting to computer skills. One stood out: budgeting and business basics. A spark of curiosity ignited within her as she read the description. Could this be the step towards something bigger? That evening, Clara pored over the paperwork, debating her next move. Could she really invest her time in this when every hour needed to be spent earning money? The prospect of failure loomed like a specter, whispering doubts as she bit her pen. Yet, beneath the fear lingered a flicker of hope. Maybe understanding finances could give her a fighting chance. Days turned into weeks as Clara juggled her busy shifts and attended the classes. Each session felt like a lifeline, offering strategies to manage her income and savings. With every lesson, she peeled back layers of confusion, revealing a newfound empowerment. The more she learned, the more she envisioned a life that wasn't dictated by fear. But potential also brought vulnerability. One evening, as she left the community center, she spotted her old boss Frank across the street, the diner still buzzing with activity. A knot twisted in her stomach, the image of him glaring down at her made her hesitate. Frank had never respected the work she put in, his dismissal had driven her away. But now, she realized she had the knowledge to confront him, to negotiate terms she once would have accepted without question. Her heart raced, propelled by a mixture of anxiety and determination. The confrontation lived as a beacon of empowerment, yet the thought of facing him sent icy tendrils of doubt through her veins. In the coming days, Clara rehearsed her approach. Each time she acknowledged her fear, it lessened, replaced by a stubborn vitality. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was what she wanted for Danny, carving out a future that wasn't dictated by sacrifice but driven by purpose. That night, in the dim light of her tiny living room, she put pen to paper, crafting a proposal for Frank. As she articulated her worth and the potential for what she could contribute, her confidence bloomed. The stakes felt higher than ever, but so did her resolve. She was no longer just a mother striving to protect her child, she was Clara, a woman rising to claim her life back from the shadows. When morning dawned, a renewed spirit coursed through her, igniting a path she had just begun to forge. The tomorrow she feared so deeply now glimmered with possibility. As she readied for the confrontation, a question gnawed at her: would Frank see her newfound strength, or would he attempt to brush her aside as he once did? Taking a deep breath, she stepped outside, determined to find out. Clara's breath caught as she approached the diner, the familiar scent of grease and coffee wafting through the air, juxtaposed against her internal clamor. She had mentally rehearsed her discourse 100 times, but now, doubts crept back in. What if Frank mocked her proposals? What if he dismissed her entirely? Rubbing her palms against her pants, she'd hoped the friction would ground her, but instead, her heart thrummed wildly against her chest. This was more than a job, this was her chance to claim some power over her life, to redefine herself beyond the diner where she had long been underestimated. As she entered, a wave of nostalgia washed over her, but it was soon drowned by the intensity of her purpose. The diner's usual morning hustle filled her ears, the clattering of dishes resonating with a comforting yet unsettling familiarity. There he was, Frank, standing behind the counter, barking orders as though nothing significant had changed since she'd left. He glanced her way, a flicker of recognition crossing his face before his eyes settled back on the coffee pot. "Clara," he called, his tone lacking the warmth it once had. "How's life treating you?" "Different," she replied, her voice firmer than she'd anticipated. The casual remark felt like an opening, a small crack in the armor she had always built around her. "Are you here for more shifts, or are you just peddling your dreams?" The casual sarcasm, a surefire jab that would have struck her down in the past, now fueled her resolve. "I'm not here for just shifts, Frank." She strode to the counter, her thoughts racing yet tethered by determination. "I want to discuss the future and mine." His dismissive chuckle hardened her nerves. "Okay, shoot. I'm interested in hearing about your grand plans." Clara inhaled deeply, grounding herself in the knowledge she'd gained over the past few weeks. With each articulation of her proposal, she could feel the weight of her own words, a clear departure from the timid acceptance that had once characterized their interactions. "I've been taking business classes. I want to bring new ideas to the diner. Increase productivity, maybe even enhance our menu. I know how to manage expenses better, and I think we could really capitalize on what the community wants." "Listen," Frank interrupted, his voice blunt. "You're a waitress and a mother. Respect your place." The sting of his words cut deeper than she wanted to admit. For a moment, the air between them thickened with disbelief. She could see the condescension in his eyes, the reflection of old power dynamics. Yet within her, something shifted. The years of taken-for-granted labor and self-denial had layered her thin veneer of politeness with distinct anger. "Respect my place?" she said, her tone rising just enough to catch his attention. "This place? My abilities? Maybe it's time I carve out my place, Frank. I'm not going to let your perception of me dictate my future." A rush of adrenaline surged through her as she finalized her proposal, laying out not just her ideas but a vision, even if her hands trembled with the effort. Frank's brows knit together, his confident facade faltering. "What makes you think I'd even consider a partnership with you?" he challenged, but there was a trace of uncertainty in his voice now. "Because," Clara asserted, "I no longer see this as the end of my journey. I want us to succeed. The diner could be more, and I'm ready to put in the work." In that moment, something profound shifted between them. It wasn't just about Clara seeking validation, it was about asserting her right to contribute on her terms. No longer just a reflection of how others saw her, she envisioned herself leading in new ways. The diner's bustle faded as Frank's hardened expression softened, intrigue mingling with suspicion. The table had turned, now it was his move. "What's your plan, then?" he asked, the challenge layered with an unexpected note of curiosity. Clara took a breath, her heart pounding with both fear and thrill. "Let's talk numbers," she replied, her spirit igniting in the face of the confrontation. "Let's talk about a future." As they began navigating the complexities of business negotiations, hope and apprehension mingled in her gut. With every moment, Clara felt more alive, more capable. She realized this wasn't merely about the diner but about setting a precedent for herself and for Danny. And as they lost themselves in discussions and strategy, Clara couldn't shake a lingering question: would her newfound voice empower her further, or would the harsh reality of past expectations stifle her growth once and for all? Clara felt the weight of their conversations shift like shifting sands beneath her feet. Numbers and profits danced in her mind while she strategized her pitches. The diner South potential was tantalizingly close. Only moments ago, she had walked in with tentative hope, but now adrenaline pumped through her veins, igniting a fierce determination. Frank leaned against the counter, arms crossed, his skeptical gaze drilling into her. In that moment, their exchange became a battleground, each word a push and pull of authority. Clara reflected on her once struggling self, the version of her who let silence fill the void instead of speaking up. The churning thoughts of failure could easily resurface, but she steadied her resolve, recalling recent nights spent poring over business materials, learning every detail as though it were a lifeline. Look, she began again, her voice steady but insistent. What if we create a weekly special to draw in locals? We could collaborate with community farms for fresh ingredients, enhance our menu, and promote them through social media. Engaging with the community will bring new customers and loyalty in return. Frank frowned, contemplating her words. Clara's heart raced. She was peeling back layers and exposing raw potential. She was trapped in a dance of doubt and revelation, and she hadn't even noticed it was happening. How much do you know about marketing? He queried, raising an eyebrow, skepticism flooding his voice. I'm learning, she admitted, and willing to learn more. Everything I've studied isn't just theoretical. It's practical, like managing expenses. I've already tracked our top sellers and identified wasteful costs in food prep times. This diner can thrive, but will need direction, and I want to help steer the ship. The hesitation that played across Frank's face didn't betray confidence. After years of being watched and underestimated, Clara saw the cracks in his facade where intimidation tinged his expression. She knew deep down that he must be feeling the shift in dynamics as she breathed life into what had become lifeless routine. You think you can come in and change things? Just like that? He challenged, but she detected an ember of intrigue in his voice. Why not? What do we have to lose? If I fail, I'll take full responsibility. But if I succeed, we both win. The conviction in her voice felt foreign yet exhilarating. No longer was she merely a waitress. She was advocating for tangible change, a notion that set her heart racing. Frank appeared to reconsider, though a cloud of uncertainty still lingered. All right, he finally conceded, his tone begrudgingly shifting to an uncharacteristic openness. Let us say I entertain your proposals. Where do we start? Clara could hardly believe the progress as a new sense of authority flooded her veins. Gradually, she mapped out a framework, a plan she could mold into something concrete. As they sat under the flickering diner lights, a fresh sense of possibility enveloped her as Frank scribbled down ideas on a neon-streaked napkin. Clara's heart swelled with pride. She was carving her identity anew. However, beneath the excitement, self-doubt still simmered. She'd faced his dismissiveness countless times before. Would he follow through with her vision? The diner wrapped around them like a living entity, filled with the sounds of plates and laughter, and Clara felt as if she were at the helm of a ship teetering on the precipice of adventure. Yet lurking behind Frank's burgeoning intrigue lay uncertainty. Would he fully embrace her ideas, or would her ambitions meet the same fate as those of countless others who had dared to dream within these walls? As Frank's brow furrowed in thought, Clara braced herself for his inevitable response. It was her moment to cross into uncharted waters, but with such change came the undeniable risk of tempestuous tides. And she wondered fleetingly, could navigating those unsteady seas forge new horizons for them both? The chatter of customers buzzed around them, creating a backdrop of energy Clara realized she hadn't fully engaged with until now. She leaned closer over the counter, her mind a flurry of ideas starting to take shape. Frank tapped his pen against the napkin, the rhythm a subtle reflection of his internal struggle. Community farms, you say, he mused aloud, his expression turning contemplative. And what about costs? How do you propose we afford this new direction? Clara felt a surge of confidence, a moment of clarity illuminating a part of her brain once shrouded in uncertainty. I've already been comparing local suppliers. We can transition to fresher ingredients incrementally, she replied, her mind racing through possible scenarios. This wasn't just about fresh produce, it was about building a brand that resonated with authenticity. If we shift our sourcing, we not only support the local economy, but we might also attract a clientele that values sustainability. Frank's brow arched, curiosity flaring momentarily. It dawned on her that she was speaking to him as a partner, not just a boss. The distinction fueled her momentum. What if we leverage social media to document our journey? Clara continued, fueled by the vibrant interaction. Behind the scenes glimpses of us working with farmers, meal prep, maybe even customer testimonials. It builds trust and connects us to the diner experience on a deeper level. As her words hung in the air, she noted the subtle change in his demeanor. His arms slowly uncrossed, shifting from an adversarial stance to one that suggested intrigue. It was a crack in the armor, a slight shift that could open a floodgate or close a door, and she felt both exhilarated and terrified. But the thrill of having Frank's attention couldn't quell the gnawing doubt. If this venture faltered, would he look back at their conversation with contempt? Would her tentative steps toward leadership crumble under pressure? She understood this was her crucible, a moment to confront her fears rather than shy away from them. "Let us run a trial," she proposed, her determination crystallizing. "For 1 month, we implement a weekly special using local ingredients. If we see positive feedback, we can steadily reinvest in this approach." "Interesting," Frank replied, a hint of admiration threading through his voice. "But we'll need more than enthusiasm. Can you take charge of implementing this? You'll lead the outreach and marketing aspects?" Clara's pulse quickened at the sudden responsibility. The prospect of stepping into a leadership role was daunting, yet it awakened an instinct within her, a deep-seated need to carve her place not just in the diner but in life itself. "Absolutely," she asserted, spirit igniting. "Then let us outline that timeline," he suggested, and together, they dove deeper into planning. Clara jotted down her ideas with vibrant strokes, the act feeling more like wielding a paintbrush than a pen. Pieces began falling into place, and with each word, the plan took on a life of its own. But as they sketched out the details, a new layer of anxiety tugged at her. What if she lacked the expertise required? Could she really deliver on this vision? Frank had shifted from skeptical to somewhat supportive, but the shadows of doubt loomed large in her mind. Clara stole a glance at Frank, noticing the way he intently considered her proposals. If he saw potential in her ideas, perhaps there was something worthy enough for her to recognize in herself as well. Yet, the balance of her confidence was fragile. The reality of leading this initiative threatened to undermine her growing resolve. With the framework in place, Clara felt like a jigsaw piece finally fitting into a larger picture. Yet, as they finalized the last details of their first special, uncertainty knotted in her gut. Could she genuinely bring change to this beloved diner, or would her vision dissolve into yet another unfinished dream? The clock on the wall ticked steadily, marking the passage of time and pressing Clara to act decisively. Frank's head nodded as he finished the last notes, but the flicker of hesitation still danced in his eyes. This realization anchored her. The time for boldness was now, but would the diner truly embrace this new direction, or would they be swept back into complacency? As she prepared to fortify her next steps, she glimpsed Frank's watchful gaze. This was more than just change. This was a confrontation with her past, an unveiling of her true potential. But the underlying challenge remained, hidden within the layers of their plan. What if her enthusiasm couldn't translate into results? Clara took a deep breath, her resolve solidifying as the pivotal moment approached. The next chapter of her journey loomed ahead, shrouded in potential and doubt. Would she navigate these new waters, or would she become adrift in the currents that threatened to pull her under? As the days unfolded, Clara became engulfed in the chaotic pulse of the diner. Each morning, she arrived earlier, energized by a fledgling sense of purpose, though anxiety trailed closely behind. Her initial conversations with Frank had sparked momentum, but the execution weighed heavily on her shoulders. The trial began with the first delivery from a local farm. Clara stood in the kitchen, illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights as employees buzzed around her, busy with their usual routines. The kaleidoscope of ingredients, plump tomatoes, earthy carrots, vibrant herbs, filled her with inspiration. Yet, as she trimmed and washed, the intensity of doubt loomed larger. Would the staff fully embrace her vision? "Clara, can you bring that box over here?" Vanessa called, her brow furrowed as she organized prior orders. Clara complied quickly, but a knot formed in her stomach. The regular menu was deeply entrenched in tradition, and she feared pushing her fresh proposals onto the kitchen team. They were, after all, seasoned hands accustomed to the routine. In that moment, Clara realized she needed to foster collaboration instead of imposing her ideas. "Hey everyone," she initiated, drawing their attention. "I'd love to hear any suggestions you have for our new dish. How can we creatively use these fresh ingredients?" Their initial reactions varied from curiosity to skepticism, but as she described her vision, their expressions softened. Clara felt a flicker of hope as voices joined in. They discussed flavor profiles, preparation techniques, and her heart swelled with the realization that this wasn't just her undertaking, it was a shared journey. After brainstorming, they settled on a roasted vegetable tart that showcased the local produce. As she watched their camaraderie blossom, Clara recognized the immense power of inclusive leadership. With Frank's approval, Clara organized a soft launch for the special. Social media posts featured photos of their kitchen escapades, little snippets of laughter, and chef's insights. The diner's followers began to engage, expressing eagerness for the upcoming dish. Yet just as excitement flourished, a wave of doubt crested. Was the attention genuine, or merely fleeting? When the launch day finally arrived, she stood behind the counter, her heart racing as customers filtered in. The moment of truth was upon her. Clara peeked at the feedback card on the table. Would it reflect triumph or disappointment? Each order that went out felt like another test. She busied herself with additional tasks, but every glance at the diners was a fresh bolt of apprehension. As the plates returned, some empty, others partially tamed, the tension sharpened. Clara's fingers trembled slightly as she collected the cards, the weight of her aspirations collapsing onto her shoulders. She flipped through them, breath-quelling, until she stumbled across a message that made her heart dance: "Best dish ever. More local specials, please." That validation was an antidote to her bubbling doubts. Invigorated, Clara approached Frank, his expression unreadable as he reviewed receipts. "How do you think it went?" she queried, her voice steady but laden with anticipation. He paused, his gaze penetrating. "You did well, Clara. I didn't expect to see such enthusiasm. But remember, this is just the beginning. Can you keep this momentum going? What comes next?" A myriad of ideas spun through her mind. She envisioned not only continuing the special dishes but crafting themes around them, perhaps weekly collaborations with various farms or even a small farmers market connection. In the throes of realization, she sensed both the weight of expectation and the thrill of opportunity. She understood that her journey was not solely about the diner's transformation, it was about her evolution as a leader. As her ambition coursed through her, she felt a pulse of determination. She wasn't just comforting the trembling mask of doubt, she was shattering it. The next step was set before her, a critical decision tinged with vulnerability. Would she push for broader changes and potentially expand her leadership, or would she play it safe to sustain the fragile success? With this uncertainty lying starkly ahead, Clara took a deep breath. A crossroads beckoned, thick with promise and peril. What choice would she make when boldness weighed against her fears? Clara awoke the next morning with the aftermath of the diner's success swirling around her mind. The excitement from the launch wasn't just a fleeting moment, and yet, it was all too fragile. The praise had been uplifting, yet the underlying pressure to deliver consistently gnawed at her conscience. She lay there, wrestling with her growing ambitions versus her instinct to retreat into the familiar. At the diner, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. The daily rituals were spot on, yet Clara felt the sting of possibility urging her to break free from the mold. As she entered the kitchen, she was met with the comforting scent of simmering stock, but, alongside it, a quiet reluctance hung in the air. Conversations among staff became punctuated. The excitement of the last couple of days had not fully reconciled with the demands of a continuous stream of innovation. Frank caught her eye, nodding as though sensing her racing thoughts. "What's on your mind today, Clara?" His voice was casual, but she sensed his interest ran deeper. "I feel we need to capitalize on the momentum. Maybe we could rotate specials more frequently or even host tasting nights." Clara suggested, her voice finding confidence. She noted the little light that flickered in Frank's eyes, but apprehension flickered back. Would he support her ambitions beyond simple menu changes? Clara, innovation is great, but we have a loyal customer base who expect consistency. Can you be sure it won't ruffle too many feathers? His emphasis on loyal was a tether to the status quo. Her heart raced with a blend of excitement and frustration. The path before her felt daunting. How could she convince the team of her vision without feeling like she was imposing change rather than inviting it? Determined to invigorate her ideas, she took a bold step. Clara gathered the staff in a small huddle that afternoon. With open palms, she spoke earnestly about the potential impact of new specials, fresh partnerships with local farms, and embracing seasonal changes. This was an opportunity to showcase individuality within the perceived structure. I want to hear your ideas too. What do you think will resonate with our customers? How can we blend your culinary expertise with these fresh concepts? Clara's optimism felt contagious, yet she braced for their reactions. As voices filled the room, varying from constructive skepticism to adventurous enthusiasm, Clara began to recognize a pattern of creativity. They pitched spice blends, iterations of seasonal produce, and even international inspirations. Each suggestion paved a pathway towards collaboration. With each cheer and critique, she felt a wave of validation bolster her resolve. But hidden beneath that validation was the uncomfortable knowledge that not everyone was on board. After the meeting, Clara approached Vanessa, who had remained quiet throughout. "What are your thoughts? You seem a bit hesitant," she probed. Vanessa's face was stern. "I just worry, Clara. We've got a system that works. Are we trying to fix something that isn't broken? Customers enjoy the familiarity. And this won't come cheap. What if we pour resources into this and it flops?" Their eyes connected, and Clara saw the weariness behind the skepticism. Vanessa was experienced, perhaps even jaded, and Clara wouldn't easily sway her. Yet, the comment left an unsettling trace in Clara's mind. As the day melted into night, Clara sat alone at a booth, mulling over the tension. Could she indeed lead them into uncharted waters while honoring the steadfast patrons who relied on their staples? A decision hovered above her head like a dark cloud. Clara realized she needed to confront her fears head-on, otherwise, she might preserve the status quo but at the cost of her passions. She pulled out a pen and notebook, detailing possibilities interspersed with her worries. Maybe it wasn't merely about what they would face, but rather how they would face it. With newfound determination, Clara set her sights not only on leading, but on forming partnerships that would invigorate the diner's offerings and preserve its core identity. But in her heart, another unsettling thought took root. What if her ambition started to pit her against her own team? The weight of her aspirations bore down heavily, and with every tick of the clock, Clara grappled with the chilling prospect of a fracture between her vision and her team's trust. Each possibility illuminated a new facet of her leadership, fragile yet compelling. She took a breath, the realization dawning, the next decision would be crucial. Would she risk everything for her vision, risking the very foundation she was trying to build upon? With clarity struck by doubt, Clara understood her journey wasn't just evolving, it was about to face its greatest test. Clara lingered in the kitchen early the next day, the hum of the restaurant still quiet as the sun began its ascent. The conversations from the meeting replayed in her mind, each pitch a fleeting note in an unresolved symphony. A maze of conflicting emotions surrounded her determination, wrestling with uncertainty. If yesterday had been a step towards collaboration, today would demand something more. She grabbed a handful of fresh herbs, the crispness invigorating her senses. Clara reflected on Vanessa's skepticism. Doubt had taken root alongside her ambition. Rather than push against it, perhaps the key lay in integrating those concerns into her vision. An idea began to form. "All right, team," Clara announced as the lunch shift started, gathering her crew around the central prep table. Before we launch any new specials, let us face our fears together. We each have strengths, let us turn critics into advocates. The room buzzed with muted excitement and anxiety, her enthusiasm sparking the same indecisiveness she felt. Today, I want everyone to create a dish that combines our classic offerings with a twist. This isn't just about innovation, it's about honoring what we do well while exploring new horizons. An unsteady silence greeted her words initially. Clara's heart raced. Would it be enough to quell the lingering concerns? Frank was the first to step forward, his brow furrowing in deep thought. And if it doesn't work, he countered, eyes darting around the room for affirmation. What makes this place special is our team, our creativity, Clara replied, feeling a swell of confidence. If we approach this as a collective, we'll not only safeguard our foundation but also expand our offerings. Let us present the dishes at a staff tasting later. Every plate will speak volumes. As the preparation commenced, Clara walked among her colleagues, observing their culinary styles and discussing their thoughts on how to blend tradition with innovation. She saw glimpses of their passion as they diced, mixed, and sautéed. It wasn't long before the tension began to dissipate, replaced by the tantalizing aroma of new dishes in the air: vegetable confit with house-made ricotta, a fresh take on classic spaghetti with unconventional sauces, and gourmet variations of hearty diner staples. Glancing at Vanessa, Clara could feel the skepticism start to melt away, if only slightly. Vanessa's nod of approval as she tasted a proposed dish gave Clara a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, collaboration could sidestep dissent. But what weighed on Clara was the assurance that this collective vision would hold up in the face of scrutiny once they presented to customers. As the afternoon faded into evening, Clara gathered her notes and an air of quiet resolve settled over her. She was inching closer to a solution, but needed to prepare for the inevitable critique that would follow the tasting. Would the diners embrace their new offerings, or would they retaliate against what felt like an affront to their beloved dishes? The tasting would be a double-edged sword. Success could propel them forward, while failure would press her ambitions and her team's trust into the crucible. Clara pressed her fingers to the outline of her plan, knowing now that she needed not only courage but also clarity in affirming her vision. As night approached, she called a meeting in the dim light of the diner, each staff member's face illuminated by a flickering overhead lamp. Tomorrow's tasting is crucial, Clara began, her voice steady. It's an opportunity not only to engage our loyal customers but also to reinforce our identity as a team. We must present not just food but our commitment to growth. Yet, buried within her words lingered a persistent question. If they succeeded in impressing the customers, would she have to face the reality of leading them through a maze of expectations every day thereafter? This gnawing doubt stirred within her, tantalizingly close to unraveling the piece she had slowly built. Tomorrow held all the potential for triumph, but it also bore the frightening possibility of change and conflict. Clara brushed her hair back, her mind racing. The dining room stood before her like an open sea, filled beyond the horizon with opportunities, yet so many hidden dangers awaited. The ticking of the clock quickened as she asked herself one last question: was she ready to navigate the storms ahead, and would they weather them together? The morning sun filtered through the diner's windows, casting an optimistic glow on the tables as Clara moved silently among them. She felt the weight of anticipation hang heavily in the air. Today was not just about the dishes, it was about her emerging identity as a leader, a focal point for both her team and their customers. She inhaled deeply, determined to lock away the doubts swirling in her head like a summer storm. As the first customers trickled in, Clara positioned herself near the kitchen door, ready to gauge their reactions. She was hyper-aware of her team, observing their fidgeting as they nervously plated the dishes they had lovingly developed over the last hours. Each dish was more than mere food, it was a representation of the conversations they had, the fears they addressed, and the partnerships they forged. The familiar clanging of plates and the sizzling sound of ingredients reached her ears, blending into a symphony of culinary creation. In that moment, Clara was not just a manager, she was the conductor of a transformative experience. She clutched the edge of the counter, recalling the last words she had left with her team the previous night, an affirmation of their journey, a promise of growth. "Table 5, ready," Frank called out, his eyes bright with determination. Clara's heart fluttered in sync with his enthusiasm, but she couldn't shake Vanessa's lingering skepticism from her mind. She owed it to her colleague and to herself to quell that doubt and be the unwavering pillar they needed. With the first round of dishes now served, she kept an eye on the diners' faces as they tasted the reinterpretations of traditional fare. The initial bites told a story, but the reactions were what truly mattered. A couple at table 2 exchanged whispers, eyebrows raised in surprise. Clara seized the opportunity, striding over to them. "Good morning. How are you enjoying our new specials?" she asked, a smile plastered on her face that masked her underlying nerves. The woman's eyes sparkled. "This pasta is phenomenal. I love the twist you've given it. It feels both familiar and new." Clara felt her heart swell at the praise, yet the intensity of the moment also amplified her sense of responsibility. "Thank you. We aim to create something special while paying homage to our roots," Clara replied, her voice reflective of the passion she felt. "Are there any suggestions?" The couple exchanged another glance before the man replied, "Everything tastes great. But I'd appreciate a bit more heat in the sauce. Perhaps take it up a notch?" Clara nodded, filing the feedback away. It was constructive and genuine, everything she wanted to hear. As she walked back towards the kitchen, she mentally noted adjustments to discuss with her team later. The day unfolded, each dish taking a turn in the spotlight. Clara found herself torn between buoyancy and anxiety, savoring each compliment while dreading criticism. Yet as customers grew enthusiastic with their comments, she couldn't ignore a quiet voice in her head. Was she truly ready to lead them through this? Could she transform it into something sustainable rather than a fleeting success? During a brief lull, she gathered her team in a quiet corner of the kitchen, a huddle forged from the day's accomplishments and the lingering uncertainties ahead. "Guys, we're doing great. Feedback is positive, and we must keep adapting and evolving." But who was she kidding? They were not out of clear waters yet. As the tasting neared its conclusion and excitement turned to fatigue, Clara felt an unexpected spark ignite within her. Perhaps this was not merely about the food or even the customers. Perhaps this was about diving deeper into fear, confronting the anxiety of stepping into an unknown leadership role. A newfound clarity washed over her as she spoke. "Let's make adjustments based on what we learned today, but let us also remember this is about us. Each of you brings something unique to the table. If we're challenged, let us rise stronger together." As they dispersed back to their stations, Clara beamed with pride. She could feel the shift manifesting in their strides, an evolving confidence taking root within the team. But still, a question loomed in her mind: was she prepared to face the darker storms of leadership when they inevitably emerged, seeking to uproot her team's hard-won trust? Just then, the door swung open, and a well-dressed couple entered, catching Clara's attention immediately. Their presence felt significant. Could they be important food critics? Missing nothing, she felt the thrill of uncertainty stir within her again. The moment had arrived for her to prove not just her capability, but to confirm her potential. The time had come to face not only the critics but also the deeper truths about her journey and herself. How would she navigate the feedback that lay ahead and emerge ready for whatever challenges awaited? As Clara navigated the last hours of the tasting day, an ineffable tension filled the air. Every dish that had been presented carried the weight of her dreams and the hopes of her team. She watched as diners savored each bite. With every smile and nod, her confidence built steadily, yet the shadows of her lingering doubts kept clawing at her mind. Would this newfound success translate into something sustainable, or would it fade away like so many fleeting moments in her life? Finally, the lunch rush wound down, and she gathered her team once more. Clara felt the pulse of excitement around her, but she understood that accolades, while sweet, were just the beginning. "Today was extraordinary," she began, locking eyes with each person who contributed to the day's culinary journey. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and we made strides in collaborating successfully. Vanessa stepped forward, a softness breaking through her initial skepticism. "I still think we need to be careful with how far we stray from what our loyal customers expect, though." Her concern added a grounding layer to their momentum, and Clara realized this was the challenge of leadership she'd spoken about. She needed to honor the steadfastness of tradition while navigating the waters of innovation. "Absolutely," Clara responded, embracing Vanessa's ability to voice the concerns that resided in many hearts but were unspoken. "Let us take everything we've learned and refine our approach. This isn't just about adding dishes, it's about evolving with our customers and letting them guide us." With newfound clarity, Clara set to work on solidifying a plan for the coming weeks. Together, they would implement a robust feedback process that allowed the customers to share suggestions constantly. They would conduct monthly tasting nights where patrons could sample new ideas alongside their beloved favorites. Here lay the balance, innovation intertwined with tradition. Clara felt the breakthrough solidified beneath her, a bridge formed from apprehension to capability. One evening soon after, rounding a group of old-timers sharing stories at their usual booth, she summoned the courage to approach them. "What do you love about the diner, and what would you like to see change?" she inquired earnestly, eyes bright with purpose. Their responses shaped her future. They longed for subtle innovation but held steadfast to the comfort of familiar tastes. A revelation dawned: her approach would have to be inclusive. Every new venture needed to be a collaborative effort with the very community that had fostered her journey. Weeks passed, and Clara became a fixture in those conversations. Each morning, she arrived early, welcoming the opportunity to interact with customers directly, gathering insights and making connections that enriched her understanding of the diner's legacy. Meanwhile, as she grew into her role, so too did her confidence blossom. By embracing the lessons learned from her team, she unveiled her potential not just as a worker but as a true leader. The newfound sense of purpose lifted Clara, and her fears began to ebb. Each hurdle became an opportunity to evolve rather than a barrier. Decisions, although still daunting, now felt surmountable. Through this transformative journey, her relationship with Frank emerged as a powerful ally. In time, she had even managed to broker agreements for additional resources, securing the local farms that would become integral to their vision. His trust transformed from skepticism to admiration. He began to champion her ideas instead of challenging them, seeing the value of her resolve. As the first anniversary of the new chapter at the diner approached, Clara found herself reflecting on how far she had come. The diner was bustling with an energy that energized not only the staff but also the community it served. With her steady guidance, they had launched a community day celebrating local produce, drawing in crowds and solidifying the diner's place as a cornerstone of their town. With each passing day, Clara not only conquered external challenges but metamorphosed internally. She no longer saw herself as merely a waitress submerged in obligation. She established herself as a leader worthy of recognition and respect. Her journey had surpassed the confines of survival. It had become one of thriving and reinvention. The day of the anniversary celebration arrived, and Clara stood in the kitchen's hustle, looking around at the busy staff working in unison. There was a sense of camaraderie, a palpable energy that spoke volumes about their shared commitment. As the day unfolded, Clara beamed at the turnout. Community members lined up around the block, eager to partake in the special farm-inspired menu they had cultivated together. The celebration became a platform not only to showcase their culinary evolution but also to reinforce relationships that bloomed over shared meals, laughter, and the belief that they could navigate change together while cherishing their roots. Hours later, amid laughter and shared stories, Clara found herself taking a moment in the diner's recess. She would soon share a few words with her loyal patrons, a speech that would cement their journey. The clock ticked softly in the background, its rhythm echoing her heartbeat as she cleared her throat. "Thank you all for being here today," she started, her voice steady despite the nerves bubbling beneath. "This diner is not merely a place to eat, it's a home built on the values of tradition and evolution. Each of you has been a part of our journey, and together we've shaped a community that celebrates flavors, embraces innovation, and fosters connections. Today, we honor where we've been and look forward to all the adventures ahead. As that wave of applause erupted around her, Clara realized she had arrived not just at a moment of achievement but at the summit of a mountain she had climbed, step by step, day by day. This was the realization of her capabilities, not just as a mother or an employee but as an individual who had finally conquered her fears and recognized her own value. As Clara looked out into the smiling faces, she registered that this was only the beginning. With the love and lessons learned, she was ready to build not just a flourishing diner but an enduring legacy of change. And in that electrifying moment, she beckoned others to continue forging their own paths forward, a testament to the power of resilience, collaboration, and the tremendous potential that lies in every single moment. Now, I urge you to reflect on Clara's journey and embrace your own challenges. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters and makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Clara's incredible transformation. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need motivation to conquer their lives. You need to take action now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.